Okay, Abby, go ahead. Itzik?
היי סמדר, זה איציק, מה שלומך?
היי, זה בסיליוס.
Hello.
היי סמדר, זאת רחל.
Hi, Smadar, Laurie.
Hi,
Smadar, Jeannie. Okay. So now we'll go to the,
How do I bring it up in here?
go on the bottom, down with the,
Plus.
and is it share?
Do I send?
No, share.
Got it. Okay.
Start.
Delmer, you can talk.
Okay, so go ahead. Raquel?
Smadar. We had a service in the morning, a Jewish service, and we've mentioned Claudia's name in the service. So this is what we did today. She's always in our thoughts.
Yes, definitely.
Smadar, did you have something that you wanted to say about Claudia?
Well, it's so recent, her love for us, and well, I think maybe I don't have much to add at this point, but I know that I already told her husband that we will mention his name in this symposium, so he's very happy to hear that.
Okay.
Great.
And Avram Rosenkirch, whom many of you know, in fact, I think everybody knows him, was very supportive and instrumental in helping us begin this process with Moshe, and a very dedicated man to children and to the community, and particularly to multicultural understanding. And that was evident in literally every interaction that we ever had, professionally or privately, wherever you went with Avram, and whenever he met someone, whether it was when we were with him in Israel or when he came here to the United States, he always conveyed that sense of warmth and kindness, just gentleness that was a wonderful attribute. So they are both truly people that we will remember and hope and keep inside ourselves as models for what we aspire to accomplish, and hopefully we'll make them proud, and I think we have. Okay, I think each one of you have contributed to this. So if we can, then we will go right to Raquel's presentation.
One of the things, I'm going to stand a little while I'm talking sometimes because I want to see this group as well as this group and Smadar. But one of the things that we're going to be presenting today is last May of 2012, Walsh, Ohio State University, Walsh University and Oregon College conducted an online face-to-face course that focused on inclusion of young children with disabilities. Now, we changed the word of disabilities to children with special rights, taking from the Salamanca statement in terms of how we look at children with disabilities. But we were looking at inclusion of young children with a focus on preschool through 3rd grade into general education settings. And we were doing it through American and Israeli cultures and perspectives. What we did is took a what we call a historical cultural framework. So it's the idea that one country is not better than another, but that how one does inclusion is located within the context of that country. So in a sense, what we were trying to do, one of the things we were trying to do in our inclusion classes that, and actually we had 4 classes that were going on in this course in May. One was Smadar's class, one was Rahel's section that was happening both in Israel, and then there was Jeannie's class through Walsh University and myself at Ohio State. One of our thoughts here is that from the cultural historical framework is that we borrow from each other in terms of what's good for us. So again, it's not that one country is doing, quote, inclusion better than another, but that we all have different ways of doing inclusion, thinking about inclusion, and that by the students starting to learn about inclusion, that they're learning from each other of how to do that. So, so we taught it in May, and what Rahel has done so nicely with Smadar's support is put a slideshow presentation together that is telling us the story of what has happened in this course. Part of that story involves a pilot research project that we did from this course. And we're now at the point of, we've done it, we need to do it again, we're learning from it. So we're really hoping that this is also going to be a dialogue, a sharing, and quite honestly, I've been dialoguing with other people already in terms of thinking about, okay, what are our next steps? So the thinking is after we can talk today, after we present the project, share what went well, what we need to work on more for the next time, is that Smadar, Rahel, Jeannie, Rita, myself, and others who want to be involved will get together to kind of talk about next steps in terms of the next course and how we want to think about it. Okay?
So what's going to be the next time?
We are hoping that it will be in the spring. Yes, but again, it's all, you know, we need to formalize it and figure that out. Yeah.
Okay, so this presentation, as Laurie said, it's actually the story of the project and the study we did on. Okay, I usually speak, Moshe knows, I speak very low tones. Smadar, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the presentation is actually going to be, we'll start with the course and the components of the course, and then we'll move on to the study itself. But the study will be told, the story of the study will be told from the perspective of the Israeli students. Okay? And you'll see why in a bit. So this is how the presentation is going to develop. I'm going to give a very short definition of inclusion, be very specific about Israeli special education law, course rationale, then move on to the process of designing and implementing the course methods, and then the second part is the study, and then final notes, and I'm going to leave to end the presentation with my final notes. I'm not going to speak about the recommendation because I think Smadar can expand on that through dialogue with Laurie and Jeannie. So hopefully, so just a brief definition of inclusion. It's a dynamic process. It's not one rigid concept. It changes across time. It changes across culture. And we really want the end product to be a non-segregated setting. And we speak about the quality of educating children with or without special needs, special rights. And we regard inclusion as a social movement and social reform, which leads to educational reform. And on the whole, education of all children within, we seek education of all children within their communities, and inclusion implies the need for these settings to consider the structures, teaching philosophies and approaches, and we aim to expand student knowledge of the use of support and guidance to better respond to the needs of all children attending the setting. So, in fact, inclusion is not just about children with special needs, it's about children with special rights. That means each child has
Special rights.
special rights.
Okay? And I think the other thing is, as Rachel is saying, and we try to impress on our students, it's not just one way to do inclusion. Physically placing a child with special rights into a general ed classroom is not inclusion. We expect that children should be learning as well as they're learning academically as well as socially in general ed settings. And if I can talk from the American perspective, is we still have a long way to go before we do that. We really are not implementing inclusion to the point of how we're looking at it in terms of definitions. We still are doing a lot of inclusion in, quote, segregated settings. And students might be, who have special rights, may be in general ed settings, but only for a short period of time. We're still including a lot of students still in the segregated settings.
Yeah, and if I can add too, that this is a continuing issue that I know Laurie and I talked early, in the 80s. I was involved in working with teachers to do the same thing. And here we are in 2013, and it's some of the same issues, because there have been improvements, but in terms of quality and in terms of, I think, of respect that we're able to present for every child to make sure we're meeting every child's needs, and that it's actually something that's, again, socially, culturally, developmentally appropriate. So it's very complex.
Okay, just to make it clear, we're actually the old issue of special needs children's rights is quite new to Israel, because only in 1988 the special education law that states that a child with certain needs has to get certain services was accepted in the Knesset, and only in 2002 we had a specific article was changed to support inclusion of children with special needs. Okay, so that we are still on the level of special needs children. So that's quite new, and I remember the day Laurie just realized that we were quite new in this business. It's not something that, it's not from the 70s, okay?
Yes,
But yeah,
Yes.
I do want to add that the law was only implemented in 1988, but special education
Was in,
was present in Israel much before that.
yes.
That the world class special education, but there wasn't a law that specified exactly what special education is.
Yes. Right.
and I think what I hadn't realized at first is Smadar, when we talked in November of 2010 in Boston, one of the things, kind of where the story starts, where it started with us with the Global Learning Project, was that that Orning College in early childhood was thinking about implementing or starting an inclusion class. So the thought was, well, we would come together to talk about how we would develop that.
Okay, this is just a drawing we use when we try to explain to students the difference between the sub-concepts that stand under the shiluv. Okay, shiluv is not shiluv achala, okay, is inclusion, okay? But what do we make of the achala, okay? So we have inclusion, which is achala, in which students with various needs are within one class, okay? And we have the shiluv, which is actually the mainstream, or in the extreme definition that would be in times also integration, in which we say that within the regular class there is a group of children with special needs, and they get a very specified support and in times different curriculum. And you have the hafrada, which is separation, in which two groups of students learn by next to each other, but they hardly ever interact with each other. And then you have exclusion, okay, where all special needs children are outside of the normal, okay, environment, and these children hardly receive any support. Okay, so that's to clarify concepts. So why do we need a course about inclusion? Mainly because we do encourage value-focused education system, because inclusion is a social value, and we want to focus on quality and equality within our educational settings. And why cross-cultural? Smadar, you wanted to add?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And why cross-cultural? I just have two quotes
This is
from our
students.
students. The first one on the left: I've been exposed to various ways and principles regarding early childhood inclusion. I came to an understanding that the process of inclusion is common among different countries, although education setting and approaches vary from one country to another. And the second quotation: I think that learning from the other is meaningful and important, especially when we speak about students from the USA who daily experience inclusion. These are Smadar students.
Students.
Students, yes,
Okay.
quotes, yes, taken from Smadar's class. Okay? Okay, when we first, and Laurie will expand on us, when we constructed this course, we began with designing the framework, then we moved on to implementing an in-action reflection. That means that through all of the course implementation, talks and talks were held between the staff members, and at the end, we had a reflection on action, and then we're on the stage of redesigning the course again.
She'll come back.
Okay. The main emphasis is according to the definition of inclusion. Okay. The main emphasis is to make a change in structures. Slow down. Okay. The main emphasis is to make changes in the structure, in educational structures, in teaching philosophies and educational approaches, and to promote the use of support and guidance to better respond to the needs of all children attending the setting. So we're not speaking about children with special needs, we're speaking about children with special rights. Okay?
So when I went over in June and July in 2011, I met Rahel and Smadar again, and I also met and stayed at Dor's house while I was with my stay with Laurie in college. And the three of them spent a lot of time showing me about what's going on in inclusion within the area. And that was very helpful. We interviewed teachers, administrators who have been involved in inclusion, and that gave me an idea of how maybe we could be working together in projects that we could do. And as we're doing that, obviously the dialogue was going on of what I was doing also in the United States in terms of inclusion and teacher preparation. So
I think one of the main things that we did when Laurie was in Israel was to create a common language. She gave us a description of early childhood education in the USA, in the States, and we gave and showed her how our system works. So we've kind of created a common and shared language, which was helpful.
So one of the things, if I can jump in, that we really wanted this course to be put together by both the Israelis and the Americans. And we had to think about, okay, how is that going to be done? We didn't want to just share syllabi and that they would pick and choose, with syllabi. So we came up with two ways to do that, two projects to do that. One was videos, that we would actually make videos of families in Israel who had children with special rights, and how their perceptions of inclusion and issues that they were facing in their country, and as well as teachers in Israel and what they were doing. And then I developed the same thing, but within the States. So that was one project that we had started to design, and then we talked about the book sharing.
Yes. And so 3 methods. Laurie spoke about the videos, okay, across cultures. We had the book sharing project, which I'll expand in a moment, and we had the discussion board in which students shared their lesson plans and reflection on what they've done. So these were the project, okay? So what I'm going to do now is use quotations, use student quotations taken out of the site of the discussion board, and show you how the method developed all through the course. So this is the first sharing, okay, of information between students from each culture, and this was getting to know each other.
Right, this was a big thing. We really thought it was really critical that our students introduce themselves to each other, because they needed to, we knew that relationships had to be established before they could actually do anything else. So that's where we were going with this. So we gave everybody an assignment, and we gave everybody an assignment to basically write a paragraph of themselves, who they were, and then they would put an artifact up, or picture, that would represent, their identity in some way.
So you can see already in these plots the differences between the students in the States and in Israel. The first one is an Ethiopian-oriented student, descendant student, and the second one is, I think it's a student from Walsh who has already a degree. Okay, our student is a pre-service student doing her first degree, and the Walsh University student is in a higher stage of learning.
Well, also, this was a second language.
Yes,
Yes. Or third language.
Yes, but she speaks Hebrew fluently. Yes, she's very strong. Okay, this is another quotation. Smadar just her picture is on. Yeah, which following the sharing of knowledge of the personal information, they started to ask. The Israeli students began asking the American students whether they could meet face-to-face. Okay? And you can see there is a lot of excitement in the beginning. The second one, hi Anna, we were excited to read your letter, and now we will be happy to talk with you face-to-face. Can you write us when it's convenient for you to talk? Please pay attention to the difference of 7 hours between Israel and Chicago. Okay, thanks a lot. And this is their writing. I think Smadar wasn't involved in how they wrote. This is the way they wrote. Marco is very strong, very high self-esteem. And she also has the ability to know the other. She said from the beginning, I don't mind the language, because they know I don't speak English fluently. So it doesn't matter as long as I can express clearly what my thoughts are.
And if I can just jump in too, I joined this group, collaborative group, later, because Laurie, Smadar, and Rachel already had really developed this course from their work together. Then I went to Israel with Rita and Gary and John last March, and was able to visit Smadar's class that had already started. So I just wanted to mention that Rita and I actually went to her class, and we spent a long time in there.
And you were fantastic.
Well, it was just a wonderful exchange. And I know, immediately some of the students, even when we talked, because we just talked, and they said, please excuse my English. That probably happened 10 times during that time. And I said, no, just talk. And that a couple of them commented, I'm a little worried about when we start doing this with the English. And so that I just wanted to mention that was something that helped me understand, being able to meet them and know where they were in terms of their language. They really wanted to meet each other.
So these are several quotes taken out of the first conversation, and what the American students were interested in is the service in the army, which all of us in Israel have to do. So this came up as the main theme. Okay? And this is part of Smadar's introduction.
We all introduced ourselves
Okay.
too. It wasn't just the students.
And you can read it for yourself. And then you can see, this is a student from, so where, John?
Pretty.
Yeah, right.
Okay, one more time.
One more.
There.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a student from Walsh University responding to Smadar. Okay? You can see the similar interests.
I'm just what that is.
יש חתול, כן. שיאז כן.
ראינו.
There are no secrets.
It's just real life.
Okay, so actually there were no differences between the students, the staff. Okay, everyone can relate to everyone in onboarding discussion.
The other thing is, Jeannie was able to be part of the class because their class started in March, right? May.
Smadar's class started in March.
In March.
And we were there in March.
Right, you were there in March. So you were there kind of at the beginning. And we decided to, because of just, it took a lot to just develop the course, we decided to do the course in the month of May. Because, OSU was just going from quarters to semesters. So we were doing from 10 weeks to 15 weeks course. And we had this May kind of slot, this month that would cover both the Israel schedule as well as our schedules.
Exactly.
So that's why we chose that.
We started exactly the same
Yes.
day and everything together.
Right.
Okay, the second assignment was to give for each group of 4 students, or had to give a name for the group, okay? And this was, these are quotations which Malka, the Ethiopian student, gave me, and you can see, this is Anna. Right, Anna and Ruth. Hey guys, I know we're supposed to create a name for a group. Anyone have any ideas? How about Sam, I am, Dr. Sue, and our first initials, okay? So Malka doesn't know, she wasn't familiar with Dr. Sue's. Well, anyway, this is her response, Malka's response. Hi guys, how about Sam? In the Ethiopian language, the Amharic, the meaning of the word Sam is a kiss. The deeper meaning is connection, and I haven't changed anything. This is how she wrote that. And it's a verb between people. That way, I think the name Sam could be perfect for us. And what happened is that they didn't respond to her. And once they didn't respond, her motivation fell down. She wasn't very keen to go on with, whose group was it? Is your group, Laurie?
It must have, well, that was, the whole thing was we put them in discussion groups. So there were about 5, 6 people in each of the groups. And it was a mix between Smadar's class and Jeannie and my class. Because of just how we didn't want to have a lot of, I think I ended up with 11 in my class. Jeannie had 16, and Smadar had like 25. So that's how we worked out the discussion groups. So yeah, and that's where some of the, I think the logistical things kind of fell down that we really need to work on.
So the American students reviewed websites about Israel and sent and shared what they've learned about Israel on the website. Israel students didn't. Okay? So you can see here several quotes.
Yeah, that was one thing I was just very concerned about in terms of developing the relationship between the 2 countries, is that I knew my students, most of them really did not know anything about Israel. So I thought that would be a good way for them to start accessing information from the websites in terms of what they know. And that was shared, actually. Jeannie and I had as Jeannie was saying, is we met on Mondays and Thursdays during the month of May. And that was between 4:30 and 8 o'clock at night. And Jeannie and I video conferenced for the first hour of that class. So we shared together what we were learning about Israel.
Okay, so this is the students shared, the American students shared their learnings of Israel, and then Smadar was very patient. And I think I went over, she had commented so many times. on each of the students' learning, and that's an example of one of the comments. And this is an interchange of thoughts between Laurie and Marcus, one of the students. Okay?
This touched this touched something in me because I was over in England and had very close friends, and they had been over in Israel, and they were actually supporting. There has been a movement that professors shouldn't go to Israel. Professors from other countries shouldn't go to Israel until they recognize the Palestinian state. And my husband and I were very upset with very close friends that we had that were recognizing this viewpoint and supporting this viewpoint because these were professors in England. So when I was, and I was very conscious of, people, they're learning about Israel through newspaper articles, and they weren't getting the full story. And I was trying to think about, okay, what is my role as a professor to kind of mediate some of this, navigate people's understanding. So this was kind of the best I could do right now in an email.
The last sentence, if Laurie's suggestion, if you pursue this with your Israeli members, understand that there are different perspectives. Okay? So that was very
Raquel.
Yes.
One of the motivations for creating the Global Learning Partnership was the fact that when we create papers, as is evidenced in what we did for Kenya, by including our Israeli partners on the paper, they were now getting a chance or more opportunities to participate in organizations that might otherwise not have allowed it. And so this was intentional from the very beginning.
When I had my thoughts about the conference, I went on and read what is reconstructing early childhood education. And it seemed that these conferences were in Palestine about 5 years ago, and in other places in which I would never have thought of going. So, move on. Okay, so why the book project? Okay, one of my students wrote me this message. In my kindergarten, this is just a translation of what she said. There is a child with a development impairment, a child with a development impairment, and mainstream during the afternoon. The other kids are growing up, and they really don't know how to treat her. They begin to have reservations about her and laugh at her. Do you know a good book or any other way to address this issue? So this is why we chose the book project. And as I said earlier this week, the books are mirrors and windows, and they enable a discourse and a dialogue about knowledge of the other.
I suspect you implemented the students in your talk, no? No?
Implemented?
שקלתם אותו,
No. Okay, the book sharing project included several stages. The first one is the 4 students, 2 of each culture, choose a book and they rush on their choice. The second stage is they discuss their planning, their lesson plan. Okay, what they're going to do with the book, and then they put on the web their project and lesson plan. Okay, so these are the books that were chosen.
And I want to add, this was kind of when I got back to the United States after our visit and we really started planning, this was really the first thing that we really worked on and the idea was that the Israelis would choose 2 books, children's books, that they could implement, part of the project, in that we as the Americans would implement this. And this is where Evie was very helpful, because Evie is at OSU. She is our support of our international project. But Evie has a deep, rich, she's a scholar in terms of early childhood literature, young adult literature. You know, she's been so involved in this. So she was very helpful in helping me kind of think through, you know, which works that we had. And so the ones that the Americans introduced was I think the Susan Laughs, and Susan, and we'll pass the books around, but Susan Laughs looks like anybody else. As you're reading about the book, you don't realize that Susan Laughs is in a wheelchair until the very end of the book. And that was one of the ways that we thought this was really good, because we want to kind of create with students that students with special rights are more similar than they are different. So we chose that. And then the other one we chose was My Brother Charlie. And we had to be thinking about what good literature that really addresses either children with special rights or just a difference in general, that is good multicultural education. And if you flip through, we have a criteria that we did use, and we taught people how to do this. And My Brother Charlie is of an African-American football player. What better stuff in the United States to show a football player's family who has had twins, and one of the twins has autistic characteristics. So we decided to choose this, but we really negotiated with the Israelis, because we couldn't find the book in Hebrew. So I know Evie, you did Scholastic. We were going to work out something with Scholastic, and we had to get Scholastic rights so we could use the book in the project. And then you decided to.
We scanned the book and then we translated.
Yes.
So before, but no Israeli student.
Right.
None of the Israeli students chose that book.
That's interesting.
No.
Yes.
Do you have permission to translate?
Yeah, I think we had permission to translate, to use it for educational purposes.
As long as they were going to sell it. You know,
Yes,
as long as they were going to use it just for their class, you know, for this product class.
Right.
So this is an example of something else. Do you want to show something?
Yes. Do you want to talk about something else?
No,
Okay.
I think,
All right. The book that the Israelis, that Smadar and Rachel and others had chosen, was called Something Else. And Something Else tries to be like everyone else. But everything he does shows how different he is. Then one night, something shows up. Has something else finally met someone just like himself? And it was interesting, because my students were looking at this and saying they had never really known about this book. But a lot of them used it and liked it. They really enjoyed it. So, yeah. So
I think many of my students use this book.
yes.
Yes.
I think because they're very
By the way, I can't start and I can't see the PowerPoint.
Oh,
John will share it again.
okay. This is go on. This is
That's all right, just go out and,
Sure.
yeah, go open her, that's it. You can keep going, she'll get it.
okay. The next slide.
Are you on?
Well, while you're doing that, pass to something else.
Yeah,
around.
that's
Okay.
done.
Where were you, Raquel?
I don't know.
No, she was down to the books.
I'll comment real quickly while we're in transition to the other.
Yes, and the next one below that, the criteria, right there.
Yeah, you got it.
See,
Yes, this is,
Smadar, see that?
You got it?
So now can you see? Okay.
Yes.
This is the original text the students sent. This is Malka as well, my favorite.
So what the students were to do, and I think the activity differed a little between the Americans and the Israelis, but the students were to take this book and read it either to a small group or to the whole class in their placements. And some of the students, especially at Walsh, they already had classrooms that they just, did the activity in. And Orlean College, the pre-service teachers had placements where they were, so they implemented them. So the idea was to take a book, and they selected together within their discussion groups a book that they would use, and they would implement the book to the small group or the whole class using universal design of learning principles that all of us used as a framework for how to implement inclusive practices in general education settings. So, and then what they did is they reflected on the assignment in specific ways, and then they posted that reflection to the discussion
This
board.
is a lesson plan, but notice there are a lot of grammar mistakes. I left it as it is. It didn't bother Malka that she was writing with grammatical mistakes, because she knew that the American students would understand her. And this is the simplicity of the lesson plan. And this is too long, but I really want you, this is the reflection she had shared on the side. This is her own writing, okay? If you can look at the second paragraph, I felt so, first of all, the student, up until she done the activity, the children never asked her why she had a different color, skin color. And she was bothered by that. But following the activity, they started to be more intimate with her, and they asked her about her color. And she felt so secure in a place where people are asking her why she has a different color. So she wrote reflection on that. And look at I've colored the Hebrew sentence, okay? She just didn't know how to write that in English.
She was code switching.
Okay, so she left it in Hebrew, okay? And she did ask for help, but we can understand from her writing that this is what she meant to write, okay? So this is how comfortable she felt with her writing. So that's, although it's an obstacle, if we do get a certain intimacy between the students abroad, the students in Israel and in the States, the language can be bridged, okay? But this is my point.
This reminds me, I have a doctoral student from Kenya who had polio from a very early age, and he's in a wheelchair. So he does his assignment, this assignment in early childhood setting, and the kids were just in love with him. They were taking him all over the place, wheeling him all over.
Surprised after meeting him.
In outside, and they didn't want him to go. And he comes back to class and he says, Dr. Katz, where did the kids learn stereotypes? Because they sure didn't, they were just so loving and welcoming, and, where were all the stereotypes that that comes across later on in life? And so the reactions were really, were nice on on both a personal standpoint.
So following the shared reflection stage, the other students reflected on the other's reflection, okay? So this is one of the students, Noam, and she was, I haven't quoted her reflection, but you can see how she addresses the assignment. She takes it very seriously. Hello everyone, I identify with the activity and my insights following this project. In Hebrew, okay, because Leon the Camelon in Hebrew is not a male, it's a female, it's Chagit, Hazikit, because this is kind of a linguistic game, okay? So she says in Hebrew the name of the Camelon is Chagit, to clarify why they were dressed as a female, because the character was dressed as a female. I hope reading this will contribute to you too. Always happy to hear, follow the mistakes and she's not bothered, the spelling mistake. Give your opinions, thought, and feedback. Noam and the smiling face, okay? And this is the reaction of the American students. It was a pleasure reading your reflection, Noam. I like how you intended for the class to pretend they were camelons to accomplish your goal for the project. I also like how you encouraged the class to talk amongst themselves, to become aware of the differences amongst us. This is a reaction.
This was interesting, and Jeannie and I talked about this because the students were asking, well, how do I respond to their activities? So we did some modeling. We talked about, obviously there's no one right way to do this. You want to reinforce them, and I think that came across pretty well.
And this is, the Israeli students really appreciated the responses that were very detailed. Okay, that didn't end with, oh, you did great and that's it. Okay, they were worried of the length of the response. But you can see how empathetic this student is, the American student. I hope things work out for you. This is so encouraging. Yes. So, this is the study. I'm going to do 10 minutes. I'm going to do this very quick, and maybe we'll just say that we had 2 American courses and 1 Israeli class, and my group was a control group because we didn't interact with the other culture. So just to be quick, this is a mixed procedure. Oh, John.
Back, forward.
Yeah, good, that's enough. Okay. So we did quantitative and qualitative analysis. Laurie will speak very briefly about the quantitative. I did the qualitative section, which included individual in the semi-structured interview, open questions at the beginning of the course, open question at the end of the course, students' written reflection, instructors' written reflections, focus group, which all of us did, and I followed all the written correspondence online. Okay? And that's the results of the quantitative.
What we're trying to do is, with the quantitative measures, look at the participants' dispositions towards inclusion and how they felt about implementing inclusive practices. And quite honestly, the results were very favorable all over, from pre and post. There was definitely an increase in the post in terms of their dispositions towards working with kids with special rights and efficacy. So that was very positive.
Okay. So on the qualitative, what we found out is that we couldn't relate the cross-cultural study, the cross-cultural in terms of location, to change in attitude and sense of self-efficacy. So what we did the qualitative study, and what we found out, we found several things. The first thing, which regards motivation, we found out that there was high motivation in the beginning of the course, and then as the course went on and students found it difficult to interact with each other, the motivation almost ended. So it became an unwanted experience. Okay, and you have quotations supporting, not disappointment. It was a great disappointment of the interaction, and I think it was maybe the framework was not clear enough. Okay, and we need to speak about that. Knowledge. Through the interviews, we've learned that the Israeli students have little knowledge about inclusion in Israel. They had no knowledge about inclusion in the USA. Very limited knowledge about children with special rights. Very limited knowledge about inclusive practices, including how to work collaboratively with staff and parents. And we found out that the source of knowledge was mainly based on their life-work experience, the experience they had, not on theory. And we found challenges. We found that language in time was a barrier, technology was a barrier, time differences was creating difficulties, gaps in age, experience, and educational degree was creating difficulties. Not seeing things. The students read the lesson plan, but they didn't see any pictures of what went on. And so one of the students said, I understand what you wrote, but I can't say whether that's right or wrong because I couldn't see that. And the Israeli students said that the choice of books was limited and they were missing the Israeli book. Okay? Student responsiveness was a very strong thing. The Israeli students said they were very keen to get involved with the student, but the responsiveness, the American responsiveness was very low. Okay? And the experience was very intensified. Short period, very large number of assignments. And they kept on saying that if it was a year, it wouldn't be a better experience course. They did speak about learning from others, the opportunities of the course. They did mention all through the course that they wanted to learn from the Americans because they had better experience with inclusion. It was very important for them. And these are several quotes, and the book project was a success. But they thought they needed more time, that it was too bad it was only a one-time experience. They wanted more with the book project. We had problems with the videos, but they related mostly to the Israeli videos, and there wasn't enough time to watch the videos, okay, the other videos, because it was such a
Well, they have them in their LMS to see anytime they want it.
Yeah,
But they were converted, translated.
Ours was okay. So something about the written correspondence, students found it difficult because it was difficult for them to write in English. So most of the correspondence was among the American students. And I looked at the discussions between the Americans, and they had extended their discussions, and they actually really shared knowledge among each other, which didn't happen with the Israelis. With the Israelis, the correspondence focused mainly on pure descriptions, pure facts. There was no expansion or no discussion about inclusive things or dilemmas, pedagogical difficulties, only in very little, very individual cases. And there was hardly any use of photographs or any other visual document, which was too bad. On the whole, okay, there was a change in attitudes towards inclusion and teaching in highly diverse classes. The Israeli students still feel as if they are weak in the practical aspects. The Israeli students mostly related their growing sense of competence to the activities done and thought within their own class. They do not relate these learnings to the Global Learning Project, and the Israeli students have positive attitudes towards interaction with the American students. They need more help and guidance. So this is this point. I'm not going to speak about what I think the
Smadar to
Yeah.
start coming in now,
Mhm.
okay? And then we'll go from there. Thank you very much. So Smadar, do you have comments about this, where we are right now?
Well, I think we did a lot, and the course was very significant for us teachers. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very well.
Okay. And I think the students as well. I think two main challenges for my students were the technology and things that you saw in the quote that they were not having time to see the videos and so on. Was because I ended up spending a lot of time in order to help them deal with technology. And this was, I think, a bit frustrating for me as well as for them. And the other real challenge was the language. They were very concerned about language. And we ended up talking a lot about that. And then, when they started communicating with the American students, they felt kind of lower-handed. Also, some of the students, like I think Marcus, who if I remember correctly, is Laurie's PhD student, would write responses that are like 3 pages long each.
Yes.
And-
Yes.
And that was, it was hard for them to follow that level of language, and they also felt that they won't be able to respond in that level, not in the level of the language and not in the delay. And then, so that was just something that we need to think about, how to do this more in sync, because it's not like they're talking or writing in English with people from the Netherlands or from a non-English speaking country. I think this whole notion of them for them second language is your students, like Jeannie and Laurie's the first language, was all the time a huge concern. And even now, I already have students that are enlisted in my course for this year that are coming to me with concerns. How will I take this course? I heard it's very difficult English-wise. So this is something that we need to deal with. And going back to the technology, I felt, and I already wrote it down in my reflection, that using the site for local strategy, and also for the communication between all the students was also confused, because some of the assignments were only for your students, and my students weren't sure, do I need to do this, don't tend to do this. So I think these are the main tools to come by, but I really think that since we all did it one time, these are things that we can overcome. And now that we have the experience and first time, the videos, the American videos have been translated, so they should be, very available to my students. And I think we can take it to a level for our students to really instruct students to feel that they are getting something out of this interaction. If we really put all the parts together and make it more in sync than it was in the first course.
Yeah.
But again, when I'm thinking that the first time we did it, I think all it was good, even though there were some problems.
Anybody have questions, other comments? I know Moshe, you have opinions about technology and how it works. And Brother Pius and Brother Dennis, maybe you have some comments, because you have ideas about going back to Uganda and taking courses back with you. So what do you think? Input from anybody?
Well, I just wondered what, in terms of trying to get the dialogue going better between the students in each of those classrooms, what were some things you're planning to do to try to encourage more?
One thing, we were talking about trying to have maybe some times where they could connect. You know, that's one option, to look at some common times, even if it's a couple of times where they could meet each other, but also look at the platform we use. I know we've talked to John Gurnek a little bit and each other. We talked last night a little bit too, to see if, because we used, you know, Ohio State was gracious in offering their management system, but the Walsh students, for example, had to get into that system, and it was one of those worlds colliding. Our email system changed at the same time. It was just complexities that caused some delays. So I think if we can do that early on now and prevent some of those problems that, I mean, things I hadn't thought of. You know, I thought it would be easy, and it took me a while. And like we used Adobe Connect, and going through another university system, Ohio State's, for me here at Walsh, was a little more complicated. And so we learned a lot. I think we can remediate that. I know we've talked, Rachel and I talked briefly last night, and we get to talk to Laurie about it, but I think you've had the conversations too of sharing what they're doing. If they could see a lesson, like I was thinking, if we had an iPad app like iMovie, and they would go into a school or any app, and, you know, or a video, whatever, and take a movie of the lesson they taught, and we could load it somewhere, so they could watch each other teaching. Because one of the things I regret is when I got to go to Israel, and I saw, you know, we saw so many wonderful learning environments, and our students here didn't get to experience that. So I would like to see that sharing. So I think there are things that are very easy to fix if we just sit and brainstorm and come up with. You know, I guess it's becoming more simple instead of sometimes more complex.
Yeah, we tried to, OSU wanted us to use Adobe Connect. They called it Carmen Connect. And I thought, okay, well, I had all the instructors on the Carmen Connect. And that was not easy. And so, of course, the students were having problems. So I'd do away with Carmen Connect. And either have them go through Skype, you know, Google, I mean, whatever, Facebook, whatever's going on, you know, whatever works for them, I think, to do that. In terms of videotaping the lessons, the issues with that in the States sometimes is the consents. And, but often they can do pictures, and we do a lot of documentation, so I think we could have pictures uploaded, you know, for those that could do it. You know, but yeah, so I think that the other thing we thought about is maybe the students wanted to learn more about Smadar and what she was doing. And the thinking was, well, then maybe as professors, who's ever teaching the courses, that we could actually have ourselves videotaped and uploaded. And Jeannie and I were thinking that wouldn't it be interesting to kind of share about, you know, inclusion in the United States through our perspectives and where we have come, because in a sense those are two different stories with the same, quote, legislation and laws and things like that. And then that could also be, you know, with Smadar and Rachel, or whoever's going to be involved, you know, doing that as well. Or maybe there is a strength, you know, of Smadar, of, you know, you're a psychologist. So that might be really good to talk about special ed from a psychologist's point of view. I mean, I think there's a lot of issues in terms of teachers understanding families who raise special rights, children with special rights, in some of the issues. And I can really see Smadar's, psychological backgrounds and expertise coming through that might be really good, because I wouldn't necessarily, share it from that kind of perspective. So that's just to kind of throw out.
Yes, and also, last year we couldn't do it because of the time differences, but maybe this year I think we will be able to visit, using Skype or whatever in each other's class.
Yeah, I think that would really be good, yeah.
I do too.
That we could, that we could arrange that. I think we still have that time difference that's really critical, but we could do the videotapes, and then that way people can view them at different times. That might be a way.
I would like
Yes.
to share a few thoughts. First of all, I enjoy the team of you working. In such a friendly and a happy way. The impression I get from the outside that you love what you're doing, that you enjoy what you're doing. I think this is first achievement, that we have a joint team working together. And maybe one of the best products can be a joint writing. Smadar inputs, your input, and it is some kind of a build basic theoretical basis for what you are doing without letting the students interfere. Just among 4, 5, 6 of you working together, dealing with the availability of literature, dealing with theoretical issues, and so on. Then, of course, technology is present all the time. My suggestion is at the beginning, keep the technology at a minimum. And experiment new technology among yourselves, or with a very small group of students. In certain times, I used to run a whole course just using email and attachments. Because everyone has Gmail now, and they're just sharing documents by email. Everyone can master that technology and so on. And then a little bit, don't make the technology to take 80% of your energy. Because sometimes that's what happens. We are all engaged in working technology. And I think there are a few other issues here that we should have. At the beginning, an hour ago, you discussed the introduction phase. And there is a whole issue how we build a group. And you have to define in the curriculum 2 weeks, 3 weeks of building the learning group. How to introduce yourselves, what you send over. In the book sharing project 100 years ago, we learned to do it, to write ID articles about between the children and exchange letters and so on, and pictures, but make it in a limited part of the phase of the program. And there, among the kids, the tendency to ask, what is your music, what you are doing, what is your habit, how is your dog, how is your cat? Students are ready to discuss it the whole semester. So, okay, cats occupy 2 weeks of our time, and then we are moving to our topic. But how you introduce yourself online? In my book there is a whole chapter on that, but what is online identity? You add a picture or not? I found out that the students are ready to tell intimate details about themselves, but very cautious about putting online a photograph. So, I think a photograph is needed, and but you have to think about how we make introduction and how we build a learning group. I'm not sure how it was now, but in the far future we not have 3 classrooms working together. together. The idea is to have one classroom working together with teachers, professors from different areas. For example, if I teach online at Grad College in Philadelphia, my students are all over the world. I had one student in Alexandria, Egypt, studying with me through Grad College in Philadelphia. So, but we had one class, not three classes working together, and I think you should try to build one working group, not dealing with three working groups that coordinate the work and whatever, because it draws a lot of energies from it. A lot of coordination, a lot of we should try, it will take time, maybe not this year, and also my advice to other courses, try to build one class, one learning group. Not remain in a situation that we have three distinct groups that sometimes interact. But we have one at the virtual agora, one studying group working together, and then you said very seriously, people not all the time are responsive and quick enough. The most common question among the internet in the last 20 years is for sure now, the most frequent question is why he didn't answer me. Every one of us faces this question. Why I send him a letter, why he or she is not just immediately responding online.
And then the answer, he doesn't like me.
I remember that at the book sharing project, we had such a stage, and I got an angry letter from an American teacher. Said, my Israeli partner, she's awful, he doesn't respect our time, and so on. But the fact was that for that week, they were sitting in a bomb shelter at the north of Israel. They couldn't respond. So
Sounds like a good reason.
but you have to put it on the table and to require quick responses. And on a weekly basis, in my online courses at ORNI, I'm telling my students, you can respond in your time, but in the framework of 1 week. You cannot just delay it forever. So the course must have a pace, otherwise it loses itself. So,
no, you can answer, okay, thank you. I'm going to get back to you in,
give any indication that you are there.
Yeah.
That you are there, but it's a very, very demanding issue. You have to be
Because
responsive.
basically you're running into the issue of trust. You're building a relationship, and until you trust each other, I didn't hear from you when I expected to hear from you. I would call you because I think, oh my God, the bombs are coming, he's had a wreck, it's like almost too crazy, but that's a different level of trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my family culture, when my daughter is calling me from Austria now, she is calling, Moshe, do you hear me?
Tornich, I owe her one of them.
But this is really tough.
Well, that's what we used to do. Moshe, do you hear me? I really
Okay. But this is part of the developing the online skills that we don't have yet, and we have to. Okay, you have the time, a week to answer. But you have to answer, or you got to give an indication that you are there. English, great. That is a problem because until now English in Israeli academic institution is a punishment. Why you have to learn English? Just because the dean demands it. Now it becomes a real issue of life, a real requirement. So I believe that from year to year, and the word is spreading that we learn English because there are a few people around the world who also speak English. And it becomes an authentic response, and I hope it will change the attitude toward English until you will start to learn Hebrew.
Right.
But
we are going to take a short break for necessary purposes and reconvene probably at 2 o'clock. And Dr.
One more comment. There is also something that we can learn from the experience of the Bookshare project. We discussed it tomorrow morning. How we process together a book. If we are having a book, it's a wonderful activity to select a book. But then once you selected the book, how you process a book in a week time or 2 weeks time period, how you do something about it together. It's a very important issue. How you read it together, how you share it with it. I think you should add to your curriculum a component about reading together a book in an online community. Something like that. I mean, it's a new issue.
And they have quite a bit of research and experience in the area, so that's beneficial.
But I'm very happy that what you achieved until now, and I believe it is very important to our college what you are doing.
All right, so 2 o'clock, we start with Dr. Zickerman and Dr. Gary Jacobs, and they will be talking about the principal's leadership course, and that will complete our day.
Rita, are you going to say goodbye to Smadar or
Smadar.
She wants to stay with us, she can.
Cup of
If you don't,
coffee.
we understand.
Good night.
Good night, dear, thank you. Zero.
Is there one on there?
I will show you.
We could not look
Jonathan, you know,
Sure.
other than recording, well, we have to record this. We start at 9 in this room. There is breakfast, as there has been before.
Good, we will work.
Okay. Good, right. And Moshe will start with his presentation about the book sharing. And then at 10 o'clock, we get down to business about where do we go from here. We're hoping to end by noon. Okay? Does that help? And I know Dr. Boak has encouraged many of the Walsh faculty